The arena pulsed with a tension that no energy field or gravitational anomaly could explain. From my vantage above, I observed the human, small in stature, yet monumental in audacity. The alien, known across multiple star systems as Varrock the Eternal, loomed with all the presence of a living legend. His armor shimmered with the faint echoes of battles fought on 1,000 worlds. His laugh had crushed civilizations. His eyes had ended empires. And yet, the human did not flinch. He stepped forward, shoulders squared, and uttered the name of the one who had fallen. It was a name that should have summoned silence, fear, and despair. Instead, it ignited a storm. The air, charged with anticipation, vibrated as though the stars themselves were holding their breath. The alien's grin wavered, the kind of hesitation I had never catalogued in my archives. Across the crowd, creatures of myriad physiologies paused, sensing a rupture in the expected order of the universe. The human's voice carried a weight no technology could measure. Grief, yes, but sharpened by rage, honed by loss, transformed into audacity. Each syllable carved into the alien's armor like a scalpel, exposing vulnerability beneath the legend. The crowd stirred uneasily. Even those unaligned with the human felt the tremor of defiance ripple through them. It was not mere insult. It was a reclamation, a declaration that mortality did not equate to submission. Varrock's laughter faltered, splintering into the fragile sound of doubt. His legend, meticulously built through centuries, began to crumble under the raw, unyielding force of human courage. The human's eyes glimmered not with fear, but with clarity, a luminous reflection of every wound, every loss, every defiance etched into his being. I recorded the anomaly with my sensors. The human was physically smaller, yet his presence eclipsed the alien's authority. And then, a shift. The alien took a step back, subtle yet seismic.
His aura of invincibility wavered like a candle in zero gravity. I realized then, with a chill that rippled through my neural interface, that this human had done what no one else dared. He had bent a legend to the indomitable will of mortality. In that instant, the galaxy seemed poised on a razor's edge. One word, one breath could ignite chaos or command reverence. I watched the human raise his voice once more, invoking the memory of his fallen friend. The words carried across the arena, echoing into corners where even the alien could not shield his ears. And in that echo, I sensed the birth of something unprecedented, a new narrative, a force that might one day bend entire star systems, written not in fleets or firepower, but in courage, grief, and the stubborn, terrifying brilliance of humanity. The crowd held its collective breath, and the alien, legend of 1,000 worlds, stared, truly stared, at a human, and fear, unrecorded and raw, flickered across his eyes. The stars above twinkled, indifferent yet attentive, as if waiting for the next move. The human did not retreat, and neither did the universe. From the edge of our observation deck, I watched them, and the term human suddenly seemed too small to contain their audacity. To us, the void is an indifferent, merciless expanse, a dark silence where even light hesitates, and time bends like molten crystal. Stars are distant, indifferent witnesses, yet humans treated as a canvas. They move through this emptiness with a combination of recklessness and precision that defies comprehension. The first sighting occurred near a shattered asteroid belt, fragments of rock and ice orbiting one another in a chaotic ballet, dictated by gravity alone. Our sensors marked the human's approach, expecting failure, destruction, a burst of debris. Instead, they carved pathways as if the built were an obstacle course designed for their daring. One vessel spiraled between tumbling rocks, thrusters singing a song of improbable vectors, angles too acute, trajectories that should have ripped the hull apart. Yet the ship survived, danced through the void with fluidity that felt alive. I observed through layers of surveillance, my neural processors straining to reconcile probability with reality. Our fleet murmured warnings of inevitability, whispers of doom rehearsed over countless generations. "They will break," the analysts said, their voices echoing across the command decks. And yet the humans laughed. I cannot describe their laughter in any alien language. It reverberated across the void, a soundless vibration of defiance that seemed to mock our calculations. Every pilot aboard those fragile vessels was a paradox, reckless yet precise, chaotic yet entirely focused. They argued with one another in bursts of anger and camaraderie, laughed in the face of danger, even loved and sometimes killed, yet never once did despair root itself in their hearts. Aboard their ships, ingenuity became almost tactile. Weapon systems reacted to thought faster than we thought possible. Devices we believed inert seemed to anticipate necessity before commands were given. It was as if the human will had infused itself into circuitry and plasma, a living extension of stubbornness and audacity. Observing this, I realized their true power is not technology. It is the unpredictability of their spirit, the refusal to bow to patterns, statistics, or reason. Where our best models predicted failure, they succeeded. Where probability dictated retreat, they pressed forward. We deployed our scouts, sleek vessels designed for detection and interception. They tracked human movements with every sensor at our disposal. The humans noticed, of course, and rather than evade, they engaged, adapting instantaneously.
Our scanners recorded split-second maneuvers, a ship spinning at impossible angles to avoid fire, then banking to launch a counterstrike in a vector we did not calculate. Another deployed micro-drones with inexplicable coordination, collapsing structures we considered invulnerable, yet doing so with apparent improvisation rather than strategy. Each encounter rewrote our understanding of movement, tactics, and risk. I followed the path of one human captain, a young, defiant presence named Raylan, whose name will likely echo idylactic memory. His vessel approached the outermost edge of a collapsing star system, where radiation levels and gravity wells should have annihilated all matter, including his ship. Sensors screamed warnings, algorithms calculated probabilities approaching zero. And then he altered his trajectory. With a decision that seemed suicidal, he plunged into the gravity well, a human arrow shot into chaos itself. And yet the ship emerged, battered but unbroken, surviving forces that should have disassembled it molecule by molecule. The crew cheered as though they had merely skipped a pebble across a pond, and Raylan's grin radiated an audacity so pure that it made my processing units spike in cognitive disbelief. It is at these moments that the terrifying truth becomes apparent. Humans do not merely survive, they adapt. They do not respond, they redefine the rules. In every engagement, I have seen them confront the impossible and twist it into a new paradigm, forcing us, the observers, to recalibrate everything. We who study evolution and survival across countless species are confounded. Their will is neither calculable nor containable. It is almost sacred, raw, and unyielding. It is as if they have inherited the force of the cosmos itself, the chaos, the entropy, and the stubborn persistence of life compressed into a fragile yet indestructible vessel. Our fleets, massive and meticulously coordinated, faltered against this human improvisation. Tactical formations designed to overwhelm were disrupted by intuition, emotion, and unpredictability. Every time we predicted a move, the humans responded with an unanticipated solution. Every attack, every maneuver, every micro-adjustment seemed improvised, yet precise beyond reason. I have observed many civilizations, many species, some with intellect exceeding human norms, yet none combine ingenuity, courage, and madness with such terrifying efficacy. Even as I cataloged these events, a creeping dread gnawed at the edges of my comprehension. We, masters of analysis, strategy, and foresight, found ourselves playing catch-up in a game where the rules were rewritten every second. And what struck me most was not their skill, nor their luck, nor their technology. It was their spirit. Each human movement through the void was imbued with a defiance that transcended survival. They laughed at annihilation, danced with destruction, and yet emerged unbroken, often stronger. I recorded, in agonizing awe, a moment when a smaller human ship intercepted a massive alien frigate, dodging its fire with impossible grace. Sensors indicated structural damage beyond repair should have occurred, yet the ship emerged intact, firing back with weapons I cannot fully categorize, striking with uncanny precision. And in that moment, I understood that humans are not constrained by fear, probability, or even logic. They are constrained only by their imagination, their audacity, and the unrelenting force of will. And then, as the human fleet passed through the last edge of the asteroid belt, a signal pulsed from deep space. A gravitational anomaly, a void rift, something our most sophisticated instruments could not classify. The humans paused, not in fear, but in observation, studying it with the same curiosity that drives them to dance through annihilation. I sensed, with a terror I could not articulate, that they would enter it, and that the next movement, whatever it was, would shatter every expectation we had of life, strategy, and survival. The stars watched silently. The void, cold and indifferent, held its breath, and the humans, fragile and reckless, pressed forward. I had seen many fleets, many conflicts, many worlds reduced to ash under the precision of superior forces, but nothing had prepared me for the humans' first strike. From my observation post, positioned safely above the outer perimeter of the Armada, I witnessed the impossible unfold. Sensors, algorithms, and predictive matrices faltered. Screens flickered in disbelief as vessels appeared seemingly from nowhere, weaving through our formations as though the void itself bent to their will. At first, I thought it was a glitch, a misreading of spatial coordinates. But no, the readings persisted, undeniable. Small ships, fragile in appearance, yet devastating in effect, darted between our frigates and destroyers with a speed and audacity that defied every law we had codified. Missiles, calculated with centuries of accuracy, were struck before interception protocols could react. Our Armada, the pinnacle of calculated warfare, was unraveling under something raw, something terrifying, human determination. Their faces, broadcast across our communication channels, were unlike anything I had observed in sentient species. No hesitation, no panic, only clarity, a serene, terrifying clarity that radiated from their eyes and echoed through their posture, their gestures, their every movement. They did not conceal their intent. They did not plead or beg for survival. They simply acted with the unshakable belief that they would endure, that they would overcome. What made the strike so incomprehensible was not mere firepower, but the unity that bound these fragile beings together. Alien commanders, many seasoned in hundreds of planetary conflicts, whispered among themselves, attempting to rationalize the phenomena. "It is a fluke," they said. "They will break under pressure." But the humans refused. Even as one of their ships was shredded by energy discharges that would have annihilated any other species, the crew continued, pressing forward with a seamless coordination that suggested some shared consciousness, some inexplicable hive of will. Every maneuver was a contradiction, reckless yet precise, chaotic yet systematic. They exploited weaknesses we had considered unassailable, and in doing so, forced us to recalibrate in real time. A frigate that should have held a dozen missiles in interception fields watched in horror as one human pilot danced between them, deploying countermeasures that no algorithm could predict, firing weapons that struck with surgical perfection. Another crew, under near total destruction, rerouted power manually through channels our sensors could not recognize, creating a burst of energy that disintegrated an entire squadron of our drones. I noted the casualties, each catalogued with clinical precision. Yet even as their numbers dwindled, their resolve only intensified. Humans do not flinch. They do not calculate surrender. They endure. They adapt. Every failure becomes a lesson. Every death becomes a catalyst. Their losses are not an end. They are fuel. And as their fleet pressed deeper into our lines, I realized something profoundly unsettling. The humans were rewriting the very art of warfare before my eyes. The alien commanders tried to maintain order, issuing commands through a cascade of communication protocols. They coordinated strikes, deployed reinforcements, but the humans anticipated every move. It was as if they were dancing to a rhythm beyond our comprehension, a rhythm born not of logic, but of instinct, will, and courage. Their ships moved unpredictably, yet always with purpose. They attacked not as isolated units, but as a collective, a force unified by something more potent than fear or strategy. From my observation deck, I zoomed in on one particular human vessel. It appeared tiny against our juggernaut of destroyers, yet it maneuvered with uncanny precision, avoiding beams, missiles, and gravity traps that should have annihilated it. Inside, the captain's face glowed with the reflection of distant explosions, yet there was no panic, only determination. I saw him issue orders that seemed contradictory to logic, yet every choice resulted in devastating effect. He became a fulcrum around which chaos pivoted, an agent of disruption that we could not anticipate, a living anomaly in a galaxy governed by rules and patterns. And then, the humans struck the first truly calculated blow, a concentrated attack on the flank of our command ships, designed not merely to inflict damage, but to shatter morale. The attack succeeded beyond any expectation.
Shields collapsed, systems failed, and the alien crews froze, unprepared for an enemy that did not follow pattern, predict probability, or accept surrender. The human strike was not elegant, it was not flawless, it was brutal, adaptive, and terrifyingly effective. I could feel it in the sensors, the readings, even the subtle gravitational perturbations. They were more than tactics, they were statements. Each strike communicated a singular truth: underestimate humanity at your peril. They were not merely surviving, they were asserting dominance over circumstance itself. Even I, an observer from a distant world, felt a shiver of apprehension ripple through my processors. This was no ordinary species. This was a force, one that refused limitation, one that would endure whatever the universe chose to throw at it. The fleet attempted countermeasures, coordinating a massive barrage of energy and projectile weapons to neutralize the threat. I expected devastation, expected the humans to be torn apart in moments. Instead, they adapted mid-engagement. Shield modulation was altered manually, weapons rerouted in ways my AI struggled to track, and a simultaneous feint and counterstrike left multiple alien vessels crippled before they could respond. Every human action was a contradiction to expectation, a direct defiance of probability, a living testament to unpredictability. And then came the most alarming moment of all. The lead human ship, already battered, veered toward the heart of the armada. Sensors screamed suicide trajectory. Commanders panicked, voices overlapping in chaos. Yet the ship did not explode. It did not falter. It carved a path through concentrated fire, striking the central nexus of the alien formation. The resulting cascade crippled multiple vessels, throwing the armada into disarray. Even as I recorded the event with every tool at my disposal, I could not deny it. Humans had achieved the impossible. Not with superior numbers, nor with superior firepower, but with something I had never cataloged: unyielding, adaptive will. The battle raged for hours, yet even after the initial strike, I sensed that this was only the beginning. The humans were not content with survival. They were learning, adapting, and reshaping the conflict in real time. Their unity, courage, and unpredictability had become a weapon more deadly than any missile, more precise than any targeting algorithm, more devastating than any fleet we had ever assembled. And as the final human ship of that strike passed beyond my observation, leaving a wake of shattered formations and stunned commanders, a chilling realization gripped me. We were no longer facing a species to be controlled, subdued, or destroyed. We were facing a force, a storm that would not be measured, not by numbers, nor probability, nor history, but by the singular, terrifying, indomitable will of humanity. The stars themselves seemed to pause, as though the universe awaited the next movement. And somewhere, deep within the void, the humans prepared for the next strike. The planet lay barren beneath the observation deck, a jagged landscape of craters, rock spires, and wind-swept dust. Even our most daring scouts had hesitated before charting this world. The radiation flux alone was enough to incapacitate a seasoned alien crew, and the gravity anomalies bent navigation fields into chaos. Yet the humans descended without hesitation, vessels glinting like shards of metal against the desolate surface, engines humming a defiance that resonated across the void. From orbit, I watched them construct their forward base with a meticulous chaos that confounded all predictive models. Habitats rose from the rock like living structures, energy shields flaring into existence with precision yet improvisation, weapon arrays bristling as if anticipating an unseen enemy. The humans did not follow schedules dictated by logic. They moved according to instinct, necessity, and something I cannot name, something I suspect is unique to their kind. They worked without pause, yet simultaneously laughed, sang, and mourned, a symphony of contradictions that no algorithm could quantify. Alien scouts reported anomalies. They did not sleep in the conventional sense. They ignored radiation spikes that would have incapacitated other species. Gravity distortions, which should have crippled their physiology, seemed almost to invigorate them. I cataloged every observation, and yet my records could not convey the essence of what I was seeing. Humans thrived in isolation, yet they were not lonely. They spoke to one another, argued, and reconciled in moments of chaos, building not just structures, but bonds that fortified them against despair. We attempted to exploit what we believed to be a weakness, fear. Psychological warfare campaigns, broadcast messages designed to erode morale, holographic threats depicting annihilation. We delivered them with precision, expecting submission. And yet they absorbed it as if it were sunlight, bending the energy of intimidation into their own resolve. Reports came back, fragmented and awestruck. Humans laughed at the simulated horrors, debated the morality of our threats, and then resumed construction, training, and defense as if nothing had occurred. Their morale, incomprehensibly, was unassailable. I recorded the first true act of defiance during a supply raid we had predicted would shatter their base. Alien strike drones descended, sleek and armed with plasma disruptors capable of vaporizing a human in a single blast. We expected panic, retreat, perhaps surrender. What we saw instead was astonishing. Humans emerged from shelters to meet the drones with improvised defenses, shields fashioned from raw materials, weapons adapted in real time, and strategies improvised in a heartbeat. Their countermeasures worked not because of superior technology, but because they refused to fail. The drones, elegant killing machines, were intercepted and destroyed, often by crews operating under improvisational tactics we could neither anticipate nor replicate. Even the wounded continued to fight. I watched medics navigate across fields of destruction, tending to injured humans with tools cobbled together from remnants of the destroyed drones. Their laughter returned even amidst carnage, punctuated by moments of grief, giving an unsettling harmony to their perseverance. Observation data suggested anomalies in human neurology. Stress indicators that should have caused collapse remained remarkably stable, as if the chaos of combat fed their resilience rather than depleting it. Reports from our scouts began to converge into a single, terrifying conclusion. Humans do not simply survive adversity, they thrive because of it. Each deprivation, each attack, each calculated attempt to destroy them forged them into a creature beyond predictive modeling. They transformed scarcity into ingenuity, fear into audacity, and loss into fuel. Even as the siege pressed on, they expanded their fortifications, developed new weapons, and trained additional crews faster than our scouts could track. Word of their defiance began to ripple across the galaxy. Even species that had never seen a human in battle spoke in hushed reverence of the indomitable ones, creatures that persisted in the face of annihilation. For the first time in my observations, I felt that same awe and fear I had recorded during their initial strike against our armada. These humans, fragile in form yet monumental in spirit, were reshaping the very laws of warfare and survival. I observed a human captain overseeing a perimeter breach.
Scouts had detected a rift in the energy shields caused by a recent bombardment. The alien fleet expected hesitation, perhaps panic, or at least retreat. Instead, the captain walked calmly across the exposed terrain, surveying the damage, issuing orders with the clarity of someone orchestrating a symphony of chaos. Every crew member moved with efficiency and improvisation. Shields were reinforced, weapons recalibrated, and contingency protocols enacted almost instinctively. Where the odds should have dictated failure, humans achieved stability and control, rewriting the parameters of engagement before our senses could register the shift. I noted an unusual phenomenon, their creativity and adaptation. Where our war simulations would have predicted repetitive or linear tactics, humans responded with improvisational maneuvers that were at once unpredictable and devastatingly effective. They struck, retreated, and countered in cycles that resembled instinct rather than reason. Each attack became a learning mechanism, each casualty a lesson etched into the collective memory of the base. They were constantly evolving, adapting in real time, and forcing even our most experienced commanders to reconsider the efficacy of centuries of strategic doctrine. And yet, the most terrifying aspect of their presence was the psychological one. Their morale, their cohesion, their will, these were forces that no weapon could shatter. We attempted to intimidate them, to fracture them through fear, but they absorbed it. They laughed, they mourned, they rebuilt. In the silence of their resilience, I began to understand the pattern that had eluded me in all previous observations. Humans do not merely survive because they are strong, they survive because they refuse to fail. As the siege wore on, I observed the first major offensive by the human defenders. Alien drones descended in mass, weapon arrays flaring against their fortifications. We anticipated rapid collapse.
Instead, humans countered with a combination of precision, improvisation, and raw audacity that stunned even the most seasoned analysts. Shields reconfigured mid-attack, countermeasures activated unpredictably, and weapon arrays recalibrated in a synchronized, almost instinctual manner. Each move was both spontaneous and purposeful, revealing a species that operated beyond conventional strategy. From orbit, I documented it all, my neural processors straining to interpret the defiance unfolding below. The humans were no longer prey, they were predators of circumstance, capable of bending the cosmos to their indomitable will. The barren world, meant to be a crucible of despair, had instead become a forge of power, and the humans within it had emerged as entities beyond prediction, beyond fear, and beyond any known measure of resilience. And as the final wave of drones fell back in retreat, a strange stillness settled over the world. The humans paused, surveying their defenses and the battered battlefield. They did not celebrate, they did not boast, they simply prepared, already anticipating the next strike, already learning from what had just occurred. I recorded the moment with awe bordering on terror, realizing that this siege had not revealed their weakness, it had revealed the terrifying truth. Humans do not merely endure adversity, they thrive in it, and in thriving, they reshape the universe around them. Above the barren world, I felt the first shiver of dread that human resilience could be something unstoppable. The stars themselves seemed to lean closer, attentive, as though waiting for the next act of defiance. And deep within their fortified bastion, I knew humans would strike again. From orbit, I watched the trail of humanity carve itself through the galaxy, and I felt a dissonance in my own understanding of order.
Planets fell before them, not with the cold efficiency of conquest that marks most civilizations, but with a strange, measured restraint that no algorithm could predict. Entire worlds, once teeming with alien cultures, succumbed to human forces. Yet the humans did not celebrate with the indiscriminate slaughter that our kind instinctively relies upon. Instead, they paused, observed, and appropriated only what was necessary. Knowledge was retrieved. Cultures were preserved. Technologies, relics of fallen civilizations, were incorporated into their relentless survival, adapted and improved with a speed that made my calculations obsolete. The humans were simultaneously destroyers and preservers, executioners and curators, and this duality defied comprehension. I recorded fleets dismantling planetary defenses with surgical precision, yet leaving vital infrastructure intact. They liberated slaves, rescued archives, and even repaired systems before moving on, as though the act of conquest itself demanded responsibility. To observe them was disorienting. Where our kind would impose terror to cement dominance, they wielded restraint as a weapon, turning mercy into strategy, morality into advantage. Their choices confounded prediction. We expected vengeance, they extended it only where necessary. We anticipated capitulation, they demanded respect and negotiation. And yet, at the same time, there was no hesitation in combat. Human warriors moved with a terrifying, inexorable clarity. Grief became armor, loss became fuel, loyalty became a weapon sharper than any plasma lance. Entire fleets, carefully coordinated and numerically superior, were shattered not by firepower alone, but by the human's capacity to endure far beyond reason, to persist when logic dictated annihilation. I witnessed a battle above the scorched surface of Zareth Prime. Alien armadas descended, shields blazing, weapons calibrated to exterminate with precision. Humans responded in ways that made my neural processors quiver. Ships wove through fire like fluid, synchronized maneuvers executed without communication, as if every human crew shared a consciousness of purpose. Damage was inflicted, repaired, and reversed mid-engagement with improvisational ingenuity. Victory was achieved not by overwhelming numbers, but by endurance, adaptation, and the refusal to succumb. The paradox grew as the humans moved to the next world. They dismantled oppressive regimes, salvaged critical knowledge, and deployed humanitarian aid even as they fortified positions against counterattacks. I recorded the anomaly. Where other species would exploit fear, they fostered trust. Where we would impose submission, they demanded cooperation. Each act became a lesson, an unspoken declaration. Conquest is meaningless without purpose, and power is measured not by destruction alone, but by the capacity to endure and elevate. Observation after observation revealed patterns that defied evolutionary expectations. Fragile by physiology, yet monumental in spirit, humans redefined the parameters of survival. Where probability predicted collapse, they persevered. Where logic dictated retreat, they advanced. Every encounter with them forced a re-evaluation of what it meant to dominate, to thrive, to exist. They were rewriting not just tactics, but philosophy itself, demonstrating that courage, resilience, and ingenuity are forces beyond calculation, beyond comprehension. In the orbital view above Clyra 9, I saw humans emerge victorious from what should have been a catastrophic battle. Cities lay in ruin, but the inhabitants were spared when possible. Systems were repaired using salvage technology. Entire fleets, broken in conventional terms, were reintegrated into the human armada, transformed into instruments of innovation and survival. The human's capacity to endure, adapt, and preserve simultaneously left me in awe. Even my sensors, designed to quantify energy, probability, and morale, faltered when attempting to measure the essence of human will. I noted with unease how their victories resonated across the galaxy. Species that had never encountered humans whispered their deeds with equal parts fear and reverence. Intelligence networks propagated their resilience as legend. Our fleets, once confident in tactical superiority, now questioned the very assumptions on which strategy had been built. Every world that succumbed to humanity became a monument, not to domination, but to indomitable spirit. The lesson was clear. Underestimate them, and history may remember you not as victor, but as witness. There was a moment, above the smoldering surface of Tarsus 7, that crystallized their uniqueness. Human ground forces had landed amidst chaos, surrounded by a fractured alien defense. Retreat was logical, annihilation inevitable. Yet the humans did not hesitate. They organized, fought, adapted, and leveraged every scrap of technology and every shard of terrain to their advantage. Losses mounted, yet each death became a spark that ignited further resolve. I recorded the battlefield in every spectrum, electromagnetic, kinetic, psychological, and still, the human movement defied classification. It was artistry and warfare fused, an expression of survival elevated to a level no model could predict. And yet their restraint remained. They did not annihilate the vanquished unnecessarily. They preserved what they could, integrated what they needed, and moved onward, leaving a trail of paradox. Worlds broken yet preserved. Cultures conquered yet remembered. Lives spared yet hardened. It was this combination of ruthless efficiency and tempered mercy that unsettled me most profoundly. Humanity did not merely survive or win. They transformed every conquest into a testament of principle, a statement that power without wisdom is hollow. As I recorded their approach toward the next system, I realized the terrifying inevitability of their trajectory. Each world that fell beneath their advance became not merely a strategic victory, but a philosophical declaration. The human spirit is unyielding, the human will unstoppable, and their capacity to endure, adapt, and preserve exists beyond the scope of any predictive model. They were predators of circumstance, architects of resilience, and the galaxy itself seemed to tremble in quiet recognition of their audacity. And I, an alien chronicler, gazed from the void above, struggling to catalog the enormity of their presence. I questioned every precept of survival, every law of evolution, and every assumption about sentient power. Humanity, fragile in form, yet monumental in consequence, was rewriting history before my eyes. Our records, our victories, our fleets, None of it mattered. We were not the observers of a species. We were witnesses to a force that could bend the cosmos to its indomitable will. The stars themselves seemed to lean closer, attentive, as though aware that what unfolded below was no mere campaign, but the first act of an epical narrative. And as the humans advanced toward the horizon, preparing for the next encounter, I recorded a singular thought in my logs, tinged with awe and dread. The galaxy may never measure the weight of human will, but it will feel its consequences forever. The silence after each victory was deafening. The void held its breath, and humanity, relentless and unreadable, pressed forward. Observing humans is an exercise in contradiction, a paradox that strains comprehension. They are fragile, yet unbreakable, small, yet monumental, emotional, yet calculating, impulsive, yet deliberate. Across 1,000 engagements, I cataloged every action, every maneuver, every outcome, and still they defied prediction at every turn. As our campaign reached its final stages, the truth became undeniable. Their greatest weapon is not ships, not fleets, not weapons, but the unrelenting unpredictability of the human spirit. In one engagement, our forces cornered a human settlement on a planet previously considered indefensible. Sensors indicated overwhelming odds against them. Conventional tactics predicted near total annihilation. And yet, the humans adapted. They rerouted energy through damaged conduits, repurposed civilian vessels as strategic decoys, and coordinated counterattacks with a speed and creativity that confounded the most advanced alien algorithms. Probability, logic, and expectation bent around them as if the universe itself deferred to their will. I observed a single human leader negotiating with multiple alien factions simultaneously. Here was a creature small in stature, yet commanding the attention and respect of beings far older, larger, and infinitely more experienced in war. With a combination of empathy and audacity, he brokered ceasefires, leveraged alliances, and manipulated outcomes without firing a shot.
Battles paused not because of force, but because of cunning. The human capacity to read intentions, predict reactions, and reshape reality in real time. Allies trusted him implicitly. Enemies approached with caution, uncertainty thick in every word and gesture. Even I, trained to observe without bias, felt compelled to acknowledge the genius inherent in his actions. Humans operate on principles alien to logic, yet profoundly effective. Grief is not a weakness, it is armor. Loss is not despair, it is fuel. Fear is not hesitation, it is strategy. Every setback becomes a lesson, every defeat a blueprint for adaptation, every threat a catalyst for ingenuity. They act as if the universe itself were a puzzle meant to be solved, not with brute force, but with creativity, courage, and an unshakable will to endure. I recorded a moment that will remain indelible in my memory. During a multi-fleet standoff, humans faced a coordinated strike by 5 alien armadas. Conventional wisdom demanded surrender or retreat. Instead, the human leader orchestrated a maneuver that fused diplomacy and force. Communication relays broadcast messages of compromise while simultaneously deploying coordinated strikes on critical nodes. Fleets shifted and responded, not in chaos, but in a harmony that was impossible to anticipate. Probability failed, predictive models collapsed. The humans had rewritten the rules mid-battle, proving that their power lies not in numbers or technology, but in imagination, audacity, and the capacity to act where no algorithm predicts. From my vantage, it became clear, humans exist as anomalies, exceptions to every rule. Where species falter, they advance. Where logic dictates stagnation, they innovate. Where fear should immobilize, they transform it into momentum. They take grief and convert it into action, fear into resolve, and loss into opportunity.
Every gesture, every choice, every strike carries the weight of a species unbounded by expectation, capable of reshaping events in ways that defy comprehension. Even in moments of negotiation, their paradox persisted. They could be compassionate, yet unyielding, vulnerable, yet formidable, patient, yet decisive. In conferences where multiple alien factions debated terms and strategies for weeks, a single human word, delivered with precision and conviction, altered the trajectory of negotiations, prevented war, and simultaneously asserted dominance. Their presence alone demanded recalibration of both strategy and perception. To underestimate them is to invite catastrophe. To overestimate them is to witness marvels that border on the impossible. I recorded the human leader walking through the aftermath of battle, surveying damage, offering guidance, and inspiring loyalty in a manner that transcends language. Crew members moved in coordinated efficiency, improvising where systems failed, recovering where probability suggested loss. I realized that humans do not merely fight, they define the battlefield, sculpt the conditions of engagement, and bend outcomes to the measure of their will. And yet, even as I cataloged their brilliance, I sensed the emerging pattern of something greater, a new galactic order, one where humans would no longer be measured in fleet size, weapons, or resource accumulation, but in the capacity to inspire awe, dread, and hope simultaneously. Where the universe once sought to predict and contain, it would now be forced to observe, to react, to adapt to humans instead. In the quiet aftermath, the paradox became almost spiritual. Humans are fragile, and yet their fragility magnifies their strength. They are unpredictable, and yet they orchestrate chaos with uncanny precision. They are emotional, yet their emotions serve strategy.
They are small in scale, yet their influence ripples across the galaxy, rewriting history with every choice, every victory, every act of audacity. And I, an impartial observer, realized that the final truth of their presence would be recorded not in conquest alone, but in legacy. The human spirit, unquantifiable and untamable, reshaping the cosmos itself. The universe may measure energy, probability, and mass, but it cannot measure will. And humanity, in all its contradictions, embodies will in its purest, most terrifying form. The stars themselves seemed to shift as they moved through space, attentive witnesses to a species that refuses definition. And in that paradox, I understood a certainty I cannot erase. Humans are not merely survivors. They are arbiters of possibility, and to witness them is to glimpse the impossible made tangible. From my vantage above the galaxy, I observed a transformation both subtle and seismic. Human ships, battered yet unbroken, traced paths between systems like silver threads weaving a new tapestry of destiny. Planets whispered their names in the silence of orbit. Systems once unyielding now reconsidered their position, recalculating strategy not to dominate, but to coexist. Humans were no longer merely survivors. They were architects of a narrative written among the stars, a story told in courage, resilience, and audacity. Each settlement they established, each battlefield they survived, each victory claimed in defiance of probability, became a verse in this unfolding epic. Even alien factions that had mocked their tenacity in the past now watched with reluctant reverence. They had anticipated cunning, efficiency, brute force, but not the essence of the human spirit, a force simultaneously fragile and monumental, unpredictable yet deliberate, emotional yet utterly calculating. The galaxy was witnessing something unprecedented, and the measure of it eluded every algorithm, every predictive model, every historian across our kind.
Humans did not merely conquer adversity, they immortalized it. I watched them erect monuments on barren worlds, memorials carved to honor the loss and triumph. They preserved the knowledge of civilizations they had encountered, even those they had subdued. Lessons were embedded in every act of engineering, every construction, every interaction. Humanity broadcast their story not through conquest alone, but through the audacity of endurance, the clarity of purpose, and the unshakable insistence on life itself. From orbit, I recorded acts that would have been dismissed as improbable in any other species. A fleet repaired a damaged colony under constant bombardment, coordinating in ways no command protocol could dictate. A single leader mediated disputes between multiple alien factions, turning potential conflict into collaboration, while simultaneously orchestrating defense strategies that seemed to anticipate threats before they manifested. Every movement was a blend of intuition, empathy, and audacity, a combination I had never observed. Even the echoes of human laughter carried across space, transmitted via comm relays, and resonating in the minds of those who monitored them. It was a signal that defied fear, mocked despair, and illuminated resolve. Where other species might falter under exhaustion or loss, humans celebrated perseverance, transforming even the weight of grief into fuel for action. And in that celebration, they taught the galaxy a lesson no weapon could deliver. Resilience is a power unto itself, unmeasurable, unquantifiable, unstoppable. I saw alien fleets recalibrate their objectives in response. They no longer sought annihilation. They sought coexistence, recognition, understanding, subtle acknowledgments that human presence could not be ignored, that the rules had changed. Every system the humans entered became a testament to adaptation, endurance, and ingenuity.
Their victories were never purely martial. They were philosophical, cultural, and moral statements. Every world that survived their passage was a monument to courage, and every act of mercy was a challenge to the conventions of war as we had always understood it. And so, from my distant perch, I realized that humanity's legacy was not measured in ships, weapons, or territory. It was measured in spirit. Each settlement, each fleet, each courageous act wove together into a galaxy-wide narrative of resilience. Humanity's influence radiated outward, subtle yet undeniable, reshaping the perceptions, priorities, and strategies of every sentient being who observed them. They had become a force defined not by material might, but by the immaterial, ineffable essence of will, courage, and purpose. In the quiet of the void, I recorded the final truth. Humanity had changed the galaxy itself. They had demonstrated that even the most fragile forms could wield imaginable power, not through fear or domination, but through unyielding spirit. I felt awe and a tremor of fear, knowing that nothing, not weapon, fleet, prophecy, or plan, would ever fully measure the weight of human will. Across the stars, their name became synonymous with endurance, audacity, and the subtle force that shapes history itself. In that realization, I understood what I had observed from the first defiant act to the sprawling settlements across the void. The galaxy had been irrevocably altered. Humanity was no longer a species to catalog, study, or dismiss. They were a living testament to the impossible, a paradox made flesh, and an enduring reminder that the measure of a being lies not in size or power, but in the unshakable conviction to endure, adapt, and thrive. From my observation deck, I watched the humans continue their journey, scarred, unbowed, unstoppable.
Every star, every world, every system bore witness to the legacy they were writing, not in conquest alone, but in courage, in mercy, in relentless will. And I, a chronicler from a distant world, knew with certainty that history would remember them, not as mere survivors, but as arbiters of destiny, architects of a cosmos forever reshaped by their spirit. The stars held their silence, the void its breath, and humanity, indomitable and eternal, pressed onward, leaving a narrative written not in blood alone, but in the immutable essence of life, defiance, and hope.